Good morning, it's Louisa Munson from the Barefoot Broadcast. How are you doing today? So this is a bit of, I need to get my Fraser Crane voice on. How are you? You know, we're doing a show today with Jay Atkinson, who you've probably seen on the show before. She's an amazing person, full of insight. She's a channel and so much more. And a few times in the past, Jay's referred to having suffered with depression. I've mentioned about depression before, and I think it's time for us all to have an open-hearted conversation about depression, how it comes up, what's worked for us, what hasn't, how we know we're in depression, all sorts of things. But I think it's time that we start to open up the show to our practical and really hard-won experiences, so that, you know, we can absolutely share within the community, and that I think that we've got some kind of practical help to get us through and to get us moving on. Before I bring Jay on, I just want to welcome anyone that's listening in live. I can also see that Carl wants to join in later. Absolutely, please do. So Carl will be joining us later. That's absolutely fine. Let us do the girly bits first, Carl, okay? Because there is a real magic, you know, when girls are just chatting as well. But yeah, welcome. If you're listening in live, let us know where you're listening in from. Also, if you've got some experiences you want to share, some of your very deep sharings will be very gratefully received. If you're listening in later on, thank you for joining us too. Anyway, let's bring Jay on now. Good morning, my darling. How are you?
Hello, I've got bedhead. I've been up long.
You know what? I've got a sweaty back of the neck because I've just blow
That's
dried.
all right.
But you know,
don't we look?
Yeah, hold on to the heat.
I do, but don't we look fabulous anyway? You know, because that's part of. Speaking about depression, you know, it was like at one time I wouldn't get out of bed at all. So you know, welcome to the new me.
Yes. Do you know what? I think it's lovely and delightful that you've just got out of bed and that you're really revealing yourself.
Yeah, see, what you see is what you get. You know, this is it. I mean, I can wear makeup and look all pretty nice, but most days I don't, you know, and that's one thing depression taught me. This is a fantastic subject. I mean, a lot of people might look at it and go, bloody hell, depression, you know, it doesn't exist. You know, I used to get told that years ago, pull yourself together, it doesn't exist. You know, you're just being miserable. And it really isn't that. It really is so not that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking in the shower today about all the different things that were said to me. And I'm now wondering which of these were myths.
Yeah.
Which of these were true.
Yeah.
You know, like what was happening. Because one thing I do recognize is people that go through any kind of illness often get very attached to their diagnosis.
That do. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I remember my mum, she had the shock of finding out she had breast cancer, and she went through all the treatment, and she survived that 25 years ago. And the moment anything goes wrong, she's like, oh, that's because of my cancer. That's because of my cancer. And the story is still very fresh in her mind. And she's since, I hope she doesn't mind me, you know, revealing, she's since had a stroke. And so now, you know, it's that there is a much bigger story developing about having had cancer and also a stroke. And we hold on to these things.
Absolutely.
And maybe we shouldn't, but depression's the same, isn't it?
It is this. It is very much the same. And my mum also had breast cancer about 30 years ago. She's not with us anymore. It wasn't what killed her, but you know, she's the only person I know that I've ever met that never once referred to it after she had a breast off. You know, she went through all of that, and my mum suffered, believe it or not, from lifelong mental illness, depression, bipolar, you name it, she had it, schizophrenia, God love her. And we didn't know all of this until much later on in life. But, you know, the one thing funnily enough, that my mum said, she used to say years ago, I'd rather have cancer. I could deal with that. I could fight that. But this mental thing, I
Wow.
can't. And for her, having cancer was a relief. And when she had it, she dealt with it beautifully. She used to actually go round when people had been diagnosed, and she'd go lift up her shirt and go, that's as bad as it gets, duck. You know, she was from Lincolnshire, my
Wow, an
mum.
inspiration.
And she was an inspiration. She truly was. And she never once said, why me? She just took it on the chin and she never mentioned it again. And it
Wow.
was the Alzheimer's that took her in the end, you know, and the mental stuff. But God love bless you, Mum. I know you're still around, you're here. And
Oh,
so for her, being depressed and not being able to deal with, you know, and in the old days, of course, they just chuck Valium at you and all these
yeah,
horrible old drugs, you know, and you
yes.
either went around in a state of complete torpor or you just, you know, couldn't cope at all and killed yourself in a lot of cases. And I do know women that did that, you know, in some horrific scenarios. But so for me, depression, I wasn't even kind of aware of it, you know, because it was only years later when I started looking into why I felt the way I felt.
Mm.
And interestingly enough, what triggered it was getting involved with the spiritual world. Um,
Ooh.
damn it.
And those well-meaning people.
Yeah. Oh my goodness me. Because obviously when you're down and depressed about and you don't know what's going on with you. And
Mm.
I realized I used to have these really black moods when I was younger. And I'd just go into this dark space where I couldn't speak to anyone. I couldn't feel anything. And I never even thought about it. I just used to go through it, get over it, and then live life.
Yeah.
And then when I was about 17 or 18, my mum came across this healing sanctuary, and I got dragged there kicking and screaming because I was totally against all of that. You know, I was like, no, you don't know what you're dealing with. Leave it. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
I'm happy in my own life, totally different to where I'm at now. But having said that, I think somewhere in me, the innocence of me at that young age also detected the BS in them.
Yeah.
Even at that stage, you know, there were one or two good people there. The rest of them were just like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. You're just messing with this stuff, you know.
Mm.
And so I did notice markedly that my episodes did increase after meeting these people, starting
Wow.
the search for the truth, you know,
Mm.
um, this search that was supposedly outside of myself, which because in those days people were a little bit naive and didn't realize that it's all within, it's an inside job.
Oh my God, I
I
wrote that down on my paper just a bit, about 10
really,
minutes ago. Yeah.
oh my good, well, there you go. You know, we're in sync as usual. Not in the sink. And yeah, so I it's only now I'm 67 years old. I can look back over my life and see what the pattern was.
67? Oh my God,
Yeah,
today.
60.
You don't look like you're 67
I
at all.
feel it today. But anyway, you know, that was kind of like, so it's kind of been with me in various incarnations, you know, all my life.
Yeah.
And so, I couldn't give into it. At times, I gave into it. And it was only when I was probably in my late 50s that I realized that depression could actually be my friend and ally.
Yes.
Because all my life, I'd jumped to you know, I'd danced to the tune of whichever piper played.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find who I was. I didn't know who I was. So I just played the game in order to get through life, you know.
Yeah.
And when I got really badly depressed, it took me to a place that was so deep and so dark that I didn't really give a shit, basically, about what anybody thought of me, what I said to them. I was truly my authentic, whatever it was then. I was being authentic. And looking back, that gave me a platform from which to grow and decide which bits of me I wanted to rebuild, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I think, you know, it's not pleasant. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And it does exist. And it's not just a mind thing. And, you know, people in the spiritual community also said to me, oh, you know, you can't be taking drugs, big pharma and all of that, which of course I was investigating too.
Mhm.
But in the end, it was that kind of got me through. I went to see my doctor, and lo and behold, she'd suffered from depression herself, and
Mm.
she sat with me for about an hour and a half in that place, and she talked to me. She let me talk. I sobbed and I said, I just don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here. I don't know what my purpose is. I'm rubbish. I'm useless. All this negative stuff came out, and she just looked at me and went, I get it. I really understand. She said, I know what's going on with you. Let's try such and such. Are you willing? She didn't force it on me.
Yeah.
She explained all the different things, and she said, are you willing to try something quite mild that might just ease this for you so you can begin to see through this darkness? And at
Mm.
that time, I tell you what, I would have taken bloody heroin. I would have, because I just didn't want to feel that way anymore.
Mm.
I get why people take drugs. I really do. They want to get out of it.
Yeah.
So for me, I took the medication, and I was really, really happy to have done so, because in a couple of months' time, I started to see the light.
Mm.
I began to come through it. And I realized at the time also that it didn't matter what any guru, wise sage, book, film, experience, whatever anybody else was trying to tell me from whatever level, was making no difference to me. I
Yeah.
had to take control of my depression or my condition myself. And the only thing that worked for me at that time was medication. And thank God. I
Yeah.
really thank God for it, because it got me through. I'm not on anything anymore. I was on it for about probably 2 or 3 years, actually,
Mm.
and tried to come off on a couple of occasions, and just kind of dipped again and thought, oh God, no, give me back the
Yeah.
drugs.
Yeah.
It was only a very small amount. It was 20 milligrams, of whatever I was taking. But that got me through. And
Yeah.
I'm so, so grateful for that. And now I feel like, because I began to rebuild who I really was, I've
Mm.
got more of the authentic me today than I've ever had before. Um,
That's
yeah.
amazing that you say that, because first of all, I just want to say hello to Sarah, who's watching, and she said, "Good
Hi,
morning, Louisa."
Sarah. Hello, lovely.
And a few minutes ago, she actually said to one of your other comments, "It gave you a way of being authentic." Wow, Jay. And
Oh,
then you
wow.
said it again, "It gave me a way of being authentic."
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
Sarah. I know she gets it. She's brilliant. I love her. I
Well,
love Sarah.
Sarah's on tomorrow,
Oh,
actually.
fantastic. I'll be listening to that then.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be great. I realised in listening to um, the first part of this conversation, to sort of like as we're diving in, this
Mm.
is such a massive subject, like
Yeah.
massive subject,
Mm.
that we might be better off just looking at how we knew we were depressed.
Yes.
Like what were the signs that we were going into depression?
Mm.
And we'll talk about, like how we recognized it in ourselves, and
Mm.
like all the different stages of depression. It might
Yeah.
be better served for us to spend this time identifying how we knew, because I've gone into depression a few different times.
Mm.
And when I do, there's always some key characteristics. Now, that just might be
Yeah.
my own recipe for getting into
Mm.
depression.
Yeah.
And it might vary from yours, but there might be some similarities. And that's
I'm
something
sure
I'm
there
really
will be.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because as I've also found, it's like everything. Every depression is unique to you. Your depression, or your state of imbalance in the mind, is unique to you, and everybody else will have a different trigger.
Yeah,
That because you think, well, we're strong women, and I can take a lot, but there's
yeah,
sometimes that straw that breaks the camel's back that just makes you go, oh, that's it, fuck it, I've had it, I'm done.
yeah. And I want to ask, with that straw that broke the camel's back, were you at some point anticipating it? Were you knowing you're about to break and almost looking forward to that break? Because I realize with a couple of my depressive outbursts, I've been almost saying, "Go on, world, push me over the edge. Go on. I
Yeah,
really need a break." And I'm
yeah,
not brave enough to do it myself.
yeah. Do you know what?
Go
That
on,
is
bring it
definite.
on.
Yeah, bring it on, because I've had
Wait
enough.
for something to kind of blow up so that you can.
Absolutely. And there have also been times when I haven't seen it coming, because I've been in a really good blow. Yeah, happy to. Well, I had one this week. I didn't go into depression, but this week I'd had this amazing experience with a friend of ours, which we'll go into in another
Yeah.
episode. But
Absolutely.
so I was feeling on a high, and that's not a euphoric high of, oh, manic depression type high. It was just genuinely feeling like, hey, I've made it. I've done something. I'm here. Yay. And then what tipped me over the edge, just very quickly, but I get back on the horse quickly these days,
Yeah.
which I couldn't before, was that I had an issue with my car and it broke down, and then it was in the garage, but then it was in the garage for 2 weeks and it should have only been there about 2 days. But the guy doing it also suffers from OCD. And I
Oh,
didn't know. So in my heart, I was like, oh my God, I know I've gone there for a reason. So to go back to the trigger points or what caused the depression, I wasn't sure that I was always aware. So in a way, it also catalyzes you into a state of searching. It
yeah.
catalyzes you into looking deeper into what's going on and what makes us tick and how the world works, and that you realize that in depression, you feel very alone. You feel very alone. Some of the things that
Would
I
you put that down and
experienced.
sorry to interrupt, would you say feeling alone is one of the hallmarks of it?
Oh, definitely. The isolation, the solitude. It's not even solitude. Solitude is quite a nice thing, but isolation and loneliness, because you feel like you are in the bottom of this. I used to call it my oubliette. I'd say I've
Yeah,
gone into
like
the
when you want
oubliette
because you want to be forgotten or
because I'd been dropped into this oubliette and everybody had forgotten me. Nobody could hear me or see me, and I couldn't get out. And that's how it felt. It was that dark and that deep.
what is
And
an oubliette? Is it a reference in some book?
An oubliette is it's like oh God, I had to look it up myself, but it's what the thing that was let me think. It was a dark, dark hole. It was something that was used as a punishment in olden times. So they would drop people into this like almost like a well or a dark room, and it'd be closed off forever and you could never get out. So if they wanted to just get rid of somebody as a punishment, they'd drop them into the oubliette. Look it up. It's
Where?
horrible.
Where
It's a
where did that
horrible.
take place?
I can't remember, but it was done like, say, Middle East, France, apparently. They did it all over the world. They had these oubliettes. Yeah, I say, we'll have
I
to
mean,
look it up.
like,
Look it up.
so they left people to die.
They left people to die, yeah, and you couldn't get out and you couldn't move in there. So you literally died slowly. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible punishment. And it was used, so say like, I would imagine 1700s. It probably goes back even further. But anyway, I had to research that because I kept thinking I'm in an oubliette, and I'm thinking, what do I mean by that? Being
Wow. I'm glad I asked.
also,
I mean, that's
yeah,
horrific, and it also kind of describes how I felt,
yeah,
um, when I've gone into a depressive thing. I mean,
yeah,
Sarah's describing it as the wrecking ball.
yeah. It is like a wrecking ball. It is. It's very much like that. But in actual fact, if you imagine a very deep, 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 dark well with just walls either side, and then they put you into this thing, and it was so deep and dark. You very often, the stories I've read about oubliettes are not very pleasant, and I don't really want to go into that. But it was just a punishment that they used. Whoever they are, there's a lot of people did it, and it was like the ultimate. It's like, right, you're done. We're done with you, and this is your punishment. You're going to die slowly, and very often, obviously, dropping somebody from a great height down a well, they broke all their bones as well, so he died in agony. It was horrible. Um, so anyway, that aside, that's how it feels. That's how I could
Yeah.
only describe depression when I was at my worst. And people who have never been there, or who have never been depressed, or who have had the blues occasionally, and like, oh well, you're just feeling a bit down, you're just having an off day, why don't you just go and have go for a swim, go in nature. I'm like, fuck nature. Nature's not,
Mm.
nothing did it for me,
Yeah.
and I love nature. So the triggers for me, or how I recognized I was slipping down, were I'd become irritable and I'd be really angry all the time and tired and snappy, and I couldn't sleep sometimes, or I overslept, didn't want to get out of bed, felt really, really tired all the time, and very weepy. And anything would set me off, an eyelash falling out on the wrong day would set me off, and I would be in a terrible place, because it was so, everything small became really magnified. So things that on a normal day-to-day basis, I would go, oh, Jesus, I've just broken a cup. So what? Breaking a cup on the wrong day would be the end of my world, literally. Because suddenly I spiraled into, I can't afford another cup. Oh my God, we've got no money. We're poor. And you go really quickly down that spiral. And it's very hard to spiral back up again. And you have to make the effort. And it's also bloody exhausting being depressed. Because what happens is you're trying to fight it and you're trying to resist the feeling. You don't want to feel this way, so you're trying to kind of resist it. And it's only when you actually give in to it that you find some respite, interestingly. Oh, have I lost you? Hello? You're frozen. I don't know if I'm here on my own, guys. We seem to have lost Louisa. Hello? Can anyone else see? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hello, we're back.
Oh my goodness. So sorry. And thank you
Oh,
to you and
don't worry, you
Sarah.
can't help it.
Yeah,
Oh my
we've had a
gosh.
storm on and off for a couple of maybe 2 or 3 days. And the wind's been whipping around and howling and all sorts. We've had a
Wow,
few
it's
power
a hell
cuts.
of a storm.
I did mean to say actually at the start, we've had power cuts on and off over the last couple of days.
Yeah, yeah,
But the internet, I mean, the power came straight back on quite quickly, but the
yeah,
internet didn't. Like I
yeah.
thought it was about to happen and it didn't. But
That
oh my
often
goodness.
happens. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well,
Thank goodness neither of us are in a depressive state.
no, I mean, if I had been, I'd have thrown myself off a bridge by now thinking, "Oh my God, that's my sign." Oh,
Yeah.
because when you are depressed, everything's a sign that you're not meant
Everything
to
is
be
fine.
there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, really. So I've got
Oh,
loads of comments. I'm just wondering,
most of them are me and Sarah, I think,
oh
I'm not
bless.
sure. We were
Uh,
just having a quick discussion there because I wasn't sure what was happening. I thought, well,
yeah.
let's just wait and see, because
Yeah.
it's an
Sarah's saying, yes,
interesting.
the storm here is quite energetic. Yes,
Yeah.
you're not wrong.
Well, I even just said to her just now, I said, I've been in such an elevated space all
Here it
week
is.
that yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah.
right.
So maybe all
Because
that talk about
because
depression is not sync with that energy.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, who knows? But anyway, we're back again. So let's
Yeah.
see, let's see if the storm synchronizes again and if we talk about it. But
Yeah.
hey ho,
Well,
it's still an
you
interesting
you
subject because so many people, it's highlighted so much these days, mental health issues,
mm,
and I do think it deserves a platform, not in a gloomy, doomy way, but to try and
mm.
say to people it's not the end. You do come out of it and
Yeah.
you can, you know.
I think that's really important to share because when last time we were sort of in communication about 20 minutes ago, you were
Mm,
saying it feels like everything is magnified
mm,
and you felt irritable, angry, tired, weepy, and it was like it doesn't matter if something small happened like breaking a cup, all of a
yeah,
sudden it would
yeah,
be like the end of the world or the straw that broke the camel's back.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
you mentioned about the feeling alone, the isolation versus solitude.
yeah.
And one of the things that really struck me, I was thinking, how did I know what was happening before I started going into depression?
Mm,
And I recognized a couple of key things. First of all, like it's interesting you were talking about the feeling of isolation and feeling alone, because one of the first things I noticed in or actually three bouts of quite persistent depression
yeah.
was I couldn't speak to anyone.
Mm,
I would have these panic attacks. And
yes.
like the first time it happened, I was at school, and I would be fine when we were in the lessons, absolutely fine. But in the lunch hours, when people wanted to spend time with me and connect with me, I would
Mm,
have this. Well, I would run and hide in the toilets. I would start to feel panic. I would feel this really deep anxiety that if somebody connected with me, it would be like the
mm,
end of the world. And so
yeah.
I'd run off and I would hide. So when I wasn't expected to be somewhere and to play the role of being at school or whatever, I buggered off.
Mm,
And I would cry and I just wouldn't speak to people, even if they asked me questions. I
mm,
couldn't physically verbalize it. And
yeah.
that was one of the first things that happened. And it also happened when I was at work, like 10 years later.
Yeah.
I had this deep, like I couldn't speak. And
Yes.
wouldn't speak, I recognise now it's self-imposed because it was me that was doing it. No one was
Mm,
doing it to me.
mm,
People wanted to connect with me, but there was something that I knew wasn't quite right. And at the same time, before that happened, I realized that I had these persistent thoughts. And often these persistent thoughts were something around, I don't know how to make this work. It's like
yes.
there was something in my reality that wasn't quite right.
Mm,
And I knew that I wanted one thing, but for some reason I wasn't allowed it. Like
yes.
the whole idea
I
of I
do.
have to do this, I've got no
Yeah.
choice. And yet this is what I really want to do.
Absolutely get that, totally. I've had that, and that's one of the things in common as well, because I was thinking this morning before we came on the show about the different aspects of it, and I'm thinking, what was it, and I was thinking, well, a lot of the time I feel that if you want to put it in a sort of different, the bigger picture, my inner being is connected to the source,
Yeah.
which, hopefully all of us are, but most of us aren't aware of it, and some of us are. But when you're connected to the source, you go at the speed of light. Everything inside of you is buzzing and fizzing, and yet the outside and the people that you interact with don't know that, and they don't go along with that. So you may have high expectations, and if you're an incredibly sensitive person, that's when it can hit you, because it feels as though you've been sat on. Your joy has been capped, and you can't do that thing right now because, well, you can't. It's like, say, when I was a child, right? I used to say to my mum, "Well, what do you mean we can't afford it? Why don't you just go to the bank and get money out?" And she's like, "Oh,
That's what our kids say.
it doesn't work like that, darling. It doesn't work like that." And I'm like, "But why doesn't it?" And as a child, I couldn't see why it didn't. I still feel like that. So, well, why? There's enough everywhere. Why can't everybody have everything they want? And when you are trying to live up to something inside of you that is true, and the outer world is reflecting that's not true, you are in a sense of confusion. And for me, my life has been about being confused all my life, because what's in here and what's out there don't sync up, So that can cause disillusionment, sadness even, and grief, because you feel like you're losing or you've lost something. So for me, I've always had this sense of loss and separation, and not being able to sort of fit in with the world, and that's really pretty hard. Panic attacks, anxiety attacks. Again, people have said to me, "Oh, I don't believe in those." I'm like, "Well, wait till you have one, then you will."
Yeah.
They're very real and they're very frightening. And when you said you couldn't speak to anyone, that's the place I go to when I'm really down. It's like, I used to think, well, in my terminology, I'd say, "Oh, maybe in a past life I was a mute, and I couldn't speak because that's how I felt." It's like your voice is stuck deep down inside of you, and it won't come up, and you don't want to speak anyway because you don't know what to say, because nobody will get it, And it's that feeling of isolation that's the worst.
Yeah. For me, I know I could find my voice, and there's something really unnerving for me when people appear to want to meet my needs,
Mm.
when they want to connect and they maybe want to
Yeah.
help. And I can't let them meet my needs. There's this
Mm.
very almost like I don't deserve it.
Yes.
And like, why would they want to spend time with me?
Yeah.
So at some level, when I go into one of these attacks, that was a bit lightning. The storm might come back. In fact, Sarah just sent us a message to say, when you come back on, the storm just hit here like a son of a bitch. And she also said, "I will hide from people when I know that I'm not fit for consumption. I
Yeah.
worry that I will do damage."
Oh,
And
yeah.
and
Yeah.
actually, when I've gone in, and Mr. M hasn't really seen one of these. He's coming in next to me. He thinks he's probably seen one of these, but he hasn't seen me really do it.
Oh, is he in for a treat?
Right, you coming on, love?
I am.
Oh, good
Hello.
grief. Hello, lovely.
Hi,
That's
Jay.
a
Hiya.
lovely, lovely voice.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, well, you should be depressed.
You,
Bugger off.
you two have cheered me right up.
Yeah, just to like carry on with what I was saying. In those moments, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm completely unworthy
Mm.
to. I have no idea why somebody is wanting to spend any time with me,
I
and I
know.
almost feel like they're mocking me,
Yeah.
or
Patronizing you.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it doesn't feel very real. And I completely
Yeah.
resonate with what you're talking about, the loss and separation and not fitting in the world. I had a session with Vinny yesterday, where actually there's a part of me that's moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and a
Yeah.
physical body part that's very much
Yeah.
here,
Dragging
and
along, behind.
and they do
Yeah,
fall out of sync a
definitely.
lot. But I think I can cope with that quite well. But there are these times, or there have been these times, when just before I go into depression, whereby the first real sign is that I start to close down.
Yes.
And don't want any contact. If
Yeah.
I feel like crying, I feel like just running and actually getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If I could
Oh, yeah.
like get into a box or climb into the cupboard under the stairs and hide all day, I would.
Yeah,
So we don't have
definitely.
we do have a cupboard under the stairs, don't we?
Do we?
Do
The
you
larder.
make one?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah. So, love, you wanted to join. I'm not aware of you having had depressive illnesses. Like you and I
It's not a
haven't.
competition.
No, I know it's not a competition.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
I'm the worst.
and like you, Jay, when you were talking, you say you deal with it better and better and better and better. I'm aware that I've had maybe a week or two where I've been feeling like I'm about to go back into it since I've been with Carl. And then I might have had a day where
Not because
it's your fault.
no, since I've been with you. My coping has got better, and obviously my life has been enhanced because you and I are together. And I think that's giving us quite good circumstances.
that
I didn't have before. But likewise, I haven't really noticed you, but I'm pretty sure you're a moody son of a bitch. So I'm
you know
sure
I am. You know I can be, and I've had an ongoing relationship to this subject, and that's part of the problem, isn't it? Making it a subject and a thing brings with it all sorts of challenges, but you can't really talk about something unless you make it a thing. So there's fraught with difficulties, isn't it? And of course it's not a competition, and of course it sounds horrible what you've been through, and I have some sense of what you're talking about, having been through some real sort of dropout episodes in life of just not being able to cope and taking refuge. And I've been fortunate enough to be in situations where that's been possible, and I've managed to hide it mainly from the world, and then monetize it a little bit by talking about spirituality and all that sort of stuff. Right.
I get it.
But I want to take I've really not enjoyed, but it's been very revealing and a beautiful thing to witness your speaking of authentically about what you've been through and in a female yinny kind of way. And I since Monday, I want to make a yangy contribution to this, if I might. Have I said enough about, on the matter of person, because on Monday you quite rightly called me out for theorizing it rather than owning it.
Yeah.
So owning it, I have been through terrible times, and I have the beauty of those times has been being saved by grace, or whatever you call it, and the absolute pits of like, I don't know what to do. I can't go on. My life is in a mess. This is all a big bullshit lie. I have been touched by grace and elevated and lifted twice in living memory, or by means which are not my own. Just lying in a bed somewhere, I can visualize and be in those places and being lifted out of that in a sort of transcendental experience. Now, you could argue, couldn't you, as we often do in the sort of spiritual circles, that if it wasn't for those horrible times, you wouldn't have had that grace. And I'm thinking, well, okay, well, I'd rather not actually have gone through all of that just to experience grace. And what I think about it is in a very kind of belligerent way now, as a result of Monday, is that this is the biggest conspiracy theory that what you're talking about.
I agree.
And what we're experiencing is the biggest of all the conspiracy theories. And that's why we like or relate to conspiracy theories, because we know we've been living in one bloody big one since the moment we were born, in this bullshit time of humanity, when all of the people advising us, that's the worst thing about depression, I think, is that anyone trying to give you advice on it, as well-meaning as it is, they are bullshitting bastards, because they are in the same situation as you are. And they're doing their best, humans do, but what they're not doing and what they're not saying, and what I'd like to say this morning is, of course people get depressed. This is a nonsense bullshit world we've created and birthed children into. It's like, oh, what a surprise, there seems to be a mental health epidemic. Wonder why that is. Oh, it's okay, we've got drugs and stuff, and I'm not knocking that. I thought it was beautiful what you said, Jay, earlier on, and I'm not, I used to have a very sort of judgmental view of medication when it came to depression. I think as you said, you've got to do whatever you can to get through this awful situation, and we've done it to ourselves as a culture, haven't we? We are doing this, and when we say to our parents, I can't go on, I can't speak, understandably our parents don't want us to suffer, so they'll do anything but change the culture, because they can't. They'll do anything to change the state you're in, but they can't change the context.
Totally. Let's medicate them instead, because we can deal with that.
And it's understandable and it's right on a level, but what's not being said on a wholesale level is this is the biggest conspiracy theory. Of course, people are depressed and unhappy in this stupid fucking reality we've caused or created.
Yeah.
And of course, a child's response to it would be, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
These people, and you know, you look to the Middle East, that is the playing out of this kind, the worst aspect of this sort of world we've created, that children can see when they're born is absolute nonsense and doesn't make sense, and is a crime against our spiritual selves. And of course, they, instead of being able to say that and change it, they start pulling their own feathers out to use that.
I agree.
That completely resonated, because I and this is the thing, you know, like your parents and society, because I don't want to blame this on my parents or anything, but bless them. I loved how you spoke about your mum, by the way, and I want to add a bit of that in for my mum and my dad as well.
And very much too. I don't blame them at all.
Yeah, I mean, they do their best, don't they, with what they've got?
They do.
And, so, like, when I went into a depressive state once or twice, I mean, to be fair, I feel like I've already been the scapegoat of my family a little bit, because I was the one that noticed things that didn't make sense.
Oh yeah, you stand out like a sore thumb. Yeah. What is it? Taylor Swift has a song and she says, people throw rocks at things that shine. Oh, don't they just?
Well, I don't know if I was the shiny one of our family, but
I think you were.
And they never threw rocks at me, but they certainly felt uncomfortable.
It's not socially acceptable.
No, but they certainly felt the level of discomfort that I brought to family, because I was the one asking questions.
Well, of course you were. Yeah.
And always wanting to look deeper than they were prepared to go or able to go. And my sister was really, bless her, just really happy with life exactly as it appeared to her.
You don't know that for sure, do you?
I don't know.
She appeared to make good terms,
and she still seems to be very much on good terms about the narrative.
And we never know, do we?
And we never know.
We never know. That's what I'm talking about.
We don't know.
That's a conspiracy. That's why it's a conspiracy.
Can I just carry on? Because, like, you know, when you do have your first sort of like proper depressive outburst, and mine, in fact, Sarah said something quite great actually. She said, Louisa, also, do you think that when trying to do depression with gusto, we might refuse any help because we're busy being depressed and need that, as Jay put it, to be most authentic? Well, yeah, you're right, because my depressive outbursts ended up with me having a depressive illness. So it continued. And then I was bedbound. You know, I got glandular fever. That was the diagnosis that I got without any kind of testing. Just saying. But oh yes, it's a virus. It definitely exists. And when I said, oh, did you test that? Oh no, we can't test for glandular fever. Like, okay, that makes sense.
How strange.
And then I was told I had ME for 2 years, which is why, well, first of all, I was told it was in my head that I was making it up. My parents were told that I was delusional, and that I had to go to school anyway. But actually, I really physically couldn't do it. I was exhausted, and I couldn't do anything. And in the end, I kind of ran away when I'd finished my A-levels. I did most of my studying from home. Had people dropping off homework. You know, had to be very clever and devious with how I did it, because the school wouldn't support me from not being at school. My parents thought I was going to school. The doctor said I was bullshitting everyone, but I got through.
And they had to do their best to pull you back into the
by telling me
that
the reality I was feeling was completely wrong. Anyway,
the Stockholm syndrome kicked in, didn't it? All the other people in the conspiracy had to pull you back in.
Totally, that's right.
I was really wanting to kind of blow it wide open, but eventually I just, like, when I was free to do what I wanted to do, like leave school, not go to university if I didn't want to, which is definitely what I didn't want to do, I buggered off to France without a plan, without a care in the world, and then spent 6 months living in a tent and felt myself come back into life. Years later, about 10 years later, I started to have the same depressive feelings, and, you know, couldn't speak to anyone, was running away from people when they were talking to me at work. And again, the doctor said, oh, well, you've got flu. And I started to get ill. Then I was bedbound for 13 months. I was part of a program to get me back in. They said, "You've got ME. You'll never
program." I love that word, program.
You'll never recover from it. Here's some antidepressants that you'll need to be able to get through this." And I went to hospital once a month to meet up with other people, many of which were in wheelchairs and this, that, and the other. But I was told that, you know, there was something wrong with me. There was a chemical imbalance. There was a virus. There was this, that, and the other. But later on, when I had recovered, and that's a whole other story. But later on, I went to Bali, and because up until that point, I'd always thought that I was the cause of everything, and that I was completely to blame, and that everyone else was quite normal, and there must have been something really wrong with me, because that was the message from the doctors, my family, my reality. Later on, I realized that actually the world wasn't the way that we thought it to be, which was exactly what I'd always known. And the moment I started to realize that actually things were rigged in a way that were against us. And when I looked at things like those 2 towers that were apparently blown up by planes, and other such like other things that happened, I started to realize that there was a much bigger story around everything. And then knowing that, even though, like Carl's talking about a conspiracy, you were talking about conspiracy, like actually when I realized that it was something and I was right all along, and that my instincts were right all along, I've not been able to be fooled into a depression anymore, because I can see the game.
You're not blaming yourself.
No,
you're not pulling your own feathers
out.
The funny thing is, you started to pull the feathers out of the big bird, not yourself.
Well, the funny thing is, I know that if I go into a depression now, that I am fully responsible, because I can see the game. But when you can't see the game and you take the blame yourself, that is really punishing.
And not everyone
it is.
It takes years to develop that level of resilience and insight, I think. And that's the great shame of this in many ways, isn't it? Is that it took a long time. It took what could arguably be called a waste of human time. To take
exactly. And
to get to that point.
I think as well, I mean, there is a popular theory, and it's not just a theory, I don't mean it flippantly, that men find it much more difficult to actually admit that they're, you know, or even recognize that they're depressed, because, you know, it's still, we're in that thing. I know we're changing all the time, but I think we're still largely in the old, you know, women do this and men do that type, you know, especially people of my age group and a bit older than me, you know, because we're still going through these transitions into newer realizations, you know. I mean, I'm quite sure my father was depressed, and well, one of my dads, I had 3, one of them, and you know, and I could see this. And also the other thing I was told was, oh well, it's in the family, you know, it's gonna get one of you. So you're all the time waiting for the other shoe to drop, because, well, your auntie had it, your granny had it, your great auntie, you know, somebody in bloody 1942 killed themselves, and you think, oh God, well, I'm doomed then. It's generational. Then I realized that was a bloody lie as well, because it's like, generational. Only if I accept that. Because if I'm supposed to be this all-powerful creator being, I can change that. I can change my own cellular memory and DNA and all the rest of it. And I absolutely bloody well know that that's true. And my sessions with Vinny this last week or so have absolutely proven that to be right, you know. So I don't listen to it anymore. I don't accept that lie. And I also took depression by the horns and dealt with it, because I needed to get to the bottom of it for my sanity. I didn't want to be like my mother or my auntie or my granny or any of the others in my family. And I didn't want to certainly not pass that on to my children, my daughters and granddaughters. And one of the things that helped me massively, more than anything I can ever say, was love and acceptance. Because when everybody's trying to medicate you or put you in a corner or bring you back into balance in their way, because it makes them feel better, not you, the one thing that got me through was Kim, my husband, who just very quietly in the background noticed what was going on, accepted me for who I was, let me rant, rave, cry, throw tantrums, go to bed for 3 days, blah, blah, blah. He just carried on calmly going through it. And I'm eternally grateful, because his love got me through, because he accepted me. And all I wanted was to be seen. That was it, really. I could do the rest after that. But when you're trying to fight people saying, no, you don't feel like this, you feel like that. Well, you shouldn't feel like this, you should feel like that. You're all the time in resistance. You can't get to that part of you that needs to go, I'm here, little me.
The little you that needs to get their needs met.
And we can do that. We can do that for each other, can't we? For sure.
We totally can.
Perhaps that is the spiritual resistance movement is not
absolutely.
It's not about doing anything. It's about being there for people, and that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, having said that, it's not an easy thing to do, but I think it's a really important thing at the moment to resist being drawn into fixing and being helpful.
That's the thing. That's the other thing. We want to help people, and the thing is, I realized quite a long time ago that people who want to help you all the time, it's like, well, all right, what's your agenda? It makes you very wary, because you realize that they're trying to do it, and it's not always for the reasons that they're saying, so you begin to become very astute at discerning the truth and what you're feeling, and what the energy that you're feeling from people. I just put it down to that we're very, very sensitive people. We know, we're aware of our soul. Even if we're not consciously aware, on some level, something in us innately knows that we are souls, and we move at the speed of light, that we're able to do anything we want, manifest anything. One of the big things which pissed me off big time was, at the time, years ago, I was, when we were all going through law of attraction, and I do have a personal vendetta with the law of attraction, only because the law of attraction, it absolutely is irrefutable, and I know that. But I've had to get to know it for myself, because the way it's being thrown out there and taught and bandied about is that, you can have, like Ben said the other day, you can have this, you can have that, manifest a car. It's like, no, it's not that.
Just dream about a bike and then it shows up.
And somebody
very who important. I think this is because of all the helpful people. The spiritually helpful person can be the most dangerous, can't they?
Oh, they're the worst. And this particular woman, one day, and I was reaching a peak, and she phoned me, and she's one of the law of attraction mob, the love and light brigade, and I just don't any time. I'm intolerant, and I don't care. I'm allowed to be, and that's one of the things I love about me, because I'm intolerant now with certain things that just piss me off, and I'm thinking, no, I can detect BS. I know, I'm not going to put up with it anymore.
Like our parents, those people are trying to help in the way they know how.
Yeah, they are,
and they are part of the bullshit world that we are. They're part of the bullshit. Part of them is part of the bullshit.
Yeah, I do recognize that. Yeah.
Can I go back a little way to something you were saying, about the how when you're depressed you can't be touched. I don't mean physically. I mean you can't be reached by other people. I had this image come to mind of when when I've been in a situation where you've got a beggar in the street or trying to help somebody. This thing of trying to help, the contempt that comes from the person you're trying to help, I think is fair enough, because it's like when you're in that state, you however kind another person is trying to be, and it takes you find that if someone is truly kind or not, when the beggar says, well, that's not enough, and then the supposedly kind person says, you're a great bastard. It might be true, mightn't it? It might be true that it's not enough, and they're just telling you the truth, and it's like, your drugs will help me, to the doctor, thank you, but this is just gonna put a plaster on this for me. You have no idea. And there is a justified contempt from the truly unhappy towards the people who are keeping up the pretense.
Yeah.
And it's not that they deserve it. It's just, I think it's true. I think it's real and it's right. That is the real test of kindness, isn't it? It's to bear witness to someone suffering not take them being honest with you personally. And the more that kind of dynamic can grow, and you can be with each other in that space, as it sounds like Kim was with you, Jay, then that is where some real growth can take place. I guess it's a transcendent moment for both people, isn't it? It's that deeply unhappy person being allowed to be that without someone reaching in and saying, the trouble with you is, and this is how we can fix it.
Exactly. And I'd had that as well.
It's
Yeah.
also not denying their reality, their actual experience at the time, because the thing I find most troubling is when I say this is how something is for me and someone is actively denying my experience. I mean, I may well decide 10 minutes later that actually I was wrong, but it's for me to find out. And that's what I recognized with what you were saying, Jay, earlier on. You know, it's an inside job. And at some point, you find yourself back in control of your faculties. You could argue you were always in control, and to the outside world it looked like you weren't in control for a while, but you're the one that finishes it and resolves it, and that's how it is for me as well.
You need to be held. Grandmas are always my model for this. You know, like you can say anything to a great grandma, can't you, who will just not react to the content but will just say, anyway, do you want another slice of cake?
Yeah, here, have a mint imperial. I've got one in my handbag somewhere.
Holding you, aren't they? In the archetype of that, in the best case.
Do you know what? You're right, Carl. Because as a granny myself, and I'm happy, I'm thrilled to be a granny. Evie, my 11-year-old granddaughter, she's a Cancerian. She's quite moody. You know, she's a little crab sometimes, and she can go on. I can see the signs in her. You know, she can absolutely be 1 minute and then next minute, you know, and you don't know why. And my other daughter was like that too, which is quite funny. I'm saying about generational, but you know, I can see something going on here. And one day she'd thrown a strop at the river, and that was it. You couldn't speak to her. She'd put herself under a blanket, and everybody's like, "Oh, come on, Evie," and she's like, she wouldn't have it. She wouldn't speak, nothing. She was just a stone under this blanket. And I just thought, oh, and I just went over and knelt down, and I just held her in the blanket. I said, I love you. I don't care how long it takes you to come out of this. I'll be here when you're ready. And I just love you. And I walked away. 2 minutes later, she's up and running again, you know, and I thought, that's all we need. That's all I need is for somebody to say, it's actually okay, you being where you're at. It's fine that you don't want to speak. It's fine that you've just smashed a cup in the kitchen. You know, I don't do that anymore. But, you know, when people are trying to coax you out of it, that's the worst thing, because you still feel really unseen and unheard. And people used to say, oh, depression, it's a really selfish thing. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It really is. But then what isn't?
That doesn't help.
Everything.
You know,
It
it's
doesn't
true.
help.
It's true, but it doesn't help. And we know that, don't we? We absolutely know that.
And this woman, I was just...
You brought men into the conversation.
Yeah, I do also want to come to Sarah's comments in a minute. And also Anna Rosa. Hello.
Hi, Anna Rosa.
But yeah, go on, and then I'll bring Sarah's comments in, because there's a lot of quality coming in.
At the moment, this thing about, you know, you were talking about men and depression, and they don't acknowledge it. I mean, it's another thing that's being commoditized: suffering, stoicism. Now, I get it. I totally get it that there is something magnificent about a strong man who might be that strong man who holds space, as we are acknowledging is a useful thing. But there is this terrible temptation, I think, to turn that. It's been commoditized by certain gentlemen, you know, that it's ennobling. And it's really not helpful to turn suffering into some kind of endurance test.
Because no.
Men who are depressed and are then kind of spiritually bypassing it, or whatever you'd call it, as a way of being a greater man, it's probably counterproductive. It's, you know, because this thing, the conspiracy of pretending everything is okay, which is a general principle in our society. We are those people, aren't we, who pretend everything's okay when it's not.
Oh, well, absolutely.
And when if men are the sort of primary holders of that vision, you know, you can't have it both ways. If this is a patriarchy and men are leading the way, they're leading the way with that bullshit as well. And that is what I think is going on. That there is this pretending everything okay typifies this age. And if we encourage men to keep doing that and then go another stage and ennoble it as a good thing and call it stoicism, I think that's a massive wrong turn. You know,
I do, Carl. And you know, it's funny because when in all of this, I was aware also, because I'm not, you know, I'm not totally, I don't know what I'm not totally, I'm just totally me. But I was aware also that Kim was having to go through this with me, and I knew it was really difficult. And I said to him on numerous occasions, I really know, you know, that it's very hard for you not to take this personally. I said, but this is not about you. This is not against you. And I thank you for holding that space for me. And then one day, I can't remember what it was that happened. And suddenly Kim lost it. He never loses it. He's always like, very calm, and I knew something was going on with him. And I just said to him, come on, you need to tell me, what is it? And he had a cry. He broke down and cried. And he's like, whatever it was, this has happened. And I just feel terrible and I can't cope. And you know what? Everything in me just rushed into my heart, and I just went and held him, and I just wrapped him in a blanket, and I just rocked him in my arms like a baby.
Oh.
And I said, it's okay. I'm here for you now.
Beautiful.
You've always been there for me, and I'm there for you. And it took a while because he went into what I call a depression. He wouldn't have ever admitted to that because he wasn't allowed to. But I just said to him, it's okay. It's fine. You can be whatever you want to be, and I'll be there for you. And he was quite ill as well a couple of years ago. And he couldn't move, and his legs swelled up, and he had this thing called polymyalgia. And I knew that whatever he'd been holding energetically had attacked his body, and it had given him a space where he could finally say, I'm done. I can't cope. I can't even move. So I then came in because he'd given me all this wonderful stuff. I'd got the strength as well to help him. It was like the blind leading the blind at one point, but it was a wonderful opportunity for me to give something back to him and hold the strength for him as well,
Beautiful.
And he started to talk, and I said to him, I've actually seen you for the first time because you're authentically telling me all these things you've never told me because you're trying to be strong for me.
Yeah.
So, that was a wonderful revelation. So he got a chance to be vulnerable as well. And in that moment of his vulnerability, I've never seen a stronger man.
Yes.
Because that to me is what strength is, being vulnerable. It doesn't make you weak, and I think this is the popular myth is we've been brought up to believe, oh, men and boys don't cry. It's still there, and we've got to get rid of it. You guys need some support too.
Thank you.
Really do.
Well, we are the creators and leaders of this everything's okay culture.
Yeah.
And I must share a vision I had of from Monday, and I think preceding Monday, because the profundity of this basic conspiracy is really hitting me now.
Yes.
About where we're at and what's going on, and how it is that we live in this achievement based. Everything is okay. All of these things have been turned into sort of just awful greetings cards, sort of wisdom and books and the personal development industry.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's true.
I think it's true that life is good and we're good, and that we are involved in this massive deception conspiracy of achievement, when life itself, our everyday moments, are good enough, and we're good enough. And part of the dynamic of the world we're born into is this achievement and progress thing.
Yeah.
Everything that I think this is what people are reacting to when they're depressed is this. It's like being in a massive, it's like being born into a shopping mall, isn't it?
Oh, where totally.
You're not born into a village green of people. You're born into a world of products and progress and achievement.
Yeah.
And some people can cope with that fairly well. I think most people can't, but most people do quite a good job of coping with it rather than actually embracing it and feeling it's right and natural. And more and more kids are responding to it in a way that is obvious, that this is nonsense. And if we can't see it for themselves, they're telling us that. And another part of this, trying to bring all these thoughts together that is especially related to you two and how I see you, is that world is also very shallow and based on rational thought and emotion. It's a very shallow world, and it belongs to maybe 2 or 3 dimensions, to talk about it in that way. And we that lives inside an unseen world of 4, 5, 6, 7, however many other dimensions. And you two as channels, I think, give us temporary access to what's beyond 2 and 3D. And if there was a wall between this world that we can see and the one I'm complaining about now, and beyond it. You two are there when you're doing channeling, like in a window, and you're at the window saying, behind me, I can see all this about you. And there's a great big wall in the way, isn't there? Because the people inside that house of 2 and 3 dimensions is just, oh, thank you. That's really helpful. While I go about trying to make sense of this 2 and 3D world, you're bringing me things from other dimensions. And I have a suspicion that if that wall collapsed, which it could do, I mean, that's what some of us maybe are waiting for. That is the moment we possibly have been describing, when in this great change that might be coming. It's that, isn't it? It's like more windows are opening. Or the wall itself might collapse such that the perceiving individual currently in the 2 and 3D world is suddenly not just receiving the occasional message from somebody like you, Jay, or somebody like you, Louisa, but it's constant and persistent.
Yes.
And some people might be ready for that and some aren't. And at the moment, when that happens to an individual, that's called psychosis, isn't it? Or depression, or
it is, or you're on drugs or something,
right.
Absolutely.
Drugs. That's right. It can be accessed through drugs, can't it? And
apparently so. Apparently
But
so, Carl.
It's that wall that's the problem, isn't it? And how it is.
Yes, it is. But I think again, you can see from where we've looked at things from the old conspiracy thing and the Matrix and all that business, and if we are locked into that at birth, it's like, right, you come in and some people are even, I've seen brand new babies about like 2 days old being given these things to look at because it developed the brain, and I'm like, for God's sake, you've just got here. I was never an academic person. I hated academia, anything. I loved reading, writing. I could do everything before I went to school because my granny taught me. I could read a newspaper at 3 years old. I can remember it. And because I really had this inner, and of course I've written things and I've always wanted to write and read and communicate. So naturally I gravitated towards those things. At 5 years old, I suddenly got dumped in this Victorian building with windows somewhere in the ceiling. And I reacted, kicked the teacher, tipped the sand tray and the water tray over and screamed blue murder till my granny came to get me at lunchtime. I was so disappointed that I had to actually go back. That environment actually trapped me, and I felt trapped all the way through school. I hated school because I didn't learn in that environment, because I didn't see the point of what they were teaching me. I still don't. I never learned anything at school, really, except for, and then I look at my 2 grandchildren who spend a lot of their time on, Fortnite, Minecraft, Bo is 7. He has the vocabulary of a learned professor. He astounds me with his vocabulary, his mind, his knowledge, and he's amazing. And they do go to school. But the most of the time when they're allowed to just be and develop, they are learning so much more than I believe personally school can ever teach them, because they don't respond to curriculum any more than I did. And the depression came from that. I was depressed from 5 years old.
As much as we're doing our best, those environments are disgusting.
They are.
They're
not
natural.
That is
truly human.
They are
and I
not
understand
natural.
why they've emerged. I understand why they developed and understand why they persist. But if we're going to be really honest about it, the going from the industrial hospital to the industrial nursery, to the industrial school, to the industrial workplace, in and out of industrial hospital along the way, and then presumably industrial undertaker at the end of it. It's like,
got the nursing home.
We can do better than this, can't we? Maybe prison, maybe nursing home. And what's the difference between these bloody places apart from the uniform? It's like, well, obviously there are. That's a flippant thing to say, but you get my point.
I just want to sort of interject a little bit. As much as I don't like these places, and I haven't had very good experiences in schools particularly, I know loads of teachers, and I know loads of nurses, and loads of people who choose to work in these places who are really fantastic. Because they believe, they're slightly more rational, and they can see the benefits of what they're doing in a way that maybe we can't.
You're right, Louisa.
No, I know that. I just wanted to make that distinction.
Acknowledge
there are some people that do well in school. I mean, I know a group of girls who are still in touch now, who met at school, and that was just like one of the most defining moments of their lives, was being at school. They loved it. And I think the people that it works really, really well. But a lot of people it doesn't.
But again,
most adults actually hated school, and then You know, when
and
they
hate work and their colleagues,
but
it's
when they send their kids to school, they say, "Come on, it's the best days of your life," and it's almost like
Stockholm syndrome.
yeah, but I just think we're in a program, and so a lot of people can't see it necessarily. And our 4-year-old, he's learnt to read from gaming, from playing Minecraft with his brother and sister, you know, and all these different things. And like last night, he was talking about his torso and something else, and I said, "How many 4-year-olds do you hear talking about?"
I would never have known what that meant at that age. Yeah,
exactly. He's got really amazing vocabulary, and you're right, it's because he's created his world from things that interest him so deeply. Right, I actually do want to bring in everyone else that's been commenting, because
yay, hello everyone else, we do know you're there.
It's only right. Anna shared with us, the thing is, depression is unseen. Nobody would have a go at someone locking themselves up for a week in a room because of a toothache.
Yeah, well said.
Depression is intangible, like most things health related, and that is true. So like, you know, if somebody can see you've had your leg cut off, or you've got your arm in a sling or something like that, nobody gives a toss. They're just kind of like trying to help you and support you in the way you need.
Well, isn't this why people injure themselves? Because you do get seen in a way with an invisible
absolutely.
Well, very much like, you know, when I was ill and I was told it was completely in my head and I was making it up.
When I was a teenager and suffering my first few bouts of teenage angst, I used to lie on the floor of the flat that I lived in with my mum and stepdad in such a way that when they came in, they would discover me unconscious on the floor. And the problem, I had to wait so long for them to come home. I used to get up anyway, but I had fantasies of being discovered unconscious.
Really?
Oh my God.
Which tells you something, doesn't it? It tells you something.
Well, you do.
It does. That touches my heart. It's funny, but it equally, I can see, you know, beneath that and feel it. And it's like, I had the same fantasy. I used to think, oh, if I just put tomato ketchup on my face or something, and then my mum will come in and go, oh my God, you know. And in actual fact, when I was about 11 or 12, I actually had appendicitis, and I was really poorly, and I was in hospital, and I bloody loved it, because I got but having said that, the attention I craved from my mum and my stepdad, they came to see me, but my mum spent the whole of my hospital visit talking to all the other patients and their mums. And then when it was time to go, she was like, "Oh,
what do I have to do here? You had to escalate.
Escalate. What have I got to do?
I've got to be that person covered in bandages with my leg and arms like all stretched out to be truly, you know, to be cared for.
Oh my goodness. Okay, right. Let's bring in some of these comments. So Sarah, bless her, has been with us the whole time. This all being said, I don't really believe that I have ever been truly clinically depressed. Intense grief situations that have severely sucked, but I've never called it that myself. It's interesting. Like where I look now at some of the things I've gone through, I now, I don't know, I just think it's really, really funny, isn't it, when you get that title, that thing. I mean, you're talking about intense grief, Sarah. Of course, who isn't going to feel absolutely bloody awful with intense grief?
Yes.
I love that you say, I always seem to see a glimmer of hope. That's beautiful. Knowing people very close to me who've had clinical depression, I recognize there is a difference in levels of what is considered depression. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for saying that, Sarah. That's really lovely. I really feel seen by that and acknowledged, because again, I've been through grief when I lost my my best friend and my what I call my twin soul sister, Sandy, you know, and I've never known grief like it, but it wasn't depression. It was quite different, you know. So thank you for that.
That's brilliant, Jay. Thank you. And Sarah. Holy shit, Louisa. I think
holy
that was
shit, Louisa.
Is that a monetization opportunity?
What, holy
your
shit?
New range of holy shit.
Holy shit.
You know what, that'd be great if I could make some money.
Get your holy shit here, only $3 a can.
I've heard it said before that depression is unacknowledged awareness.
Yeah, I totally see that. I have heard it described as an overdose of perception as well. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Yes, that's a brilliant way of putting it.
Are quite happy with the way things are and who don't question things don't tend to get depressed.
Yeah.
And also what you were saying, Jay, earlier about like having these big highs and then having these big lows. There are some people that just seem to like ride along in life very much
flat line. Yeah.
Maybe they get angry. I mean, people I'm thinking of who might not turn their unacknowledged awareness or their overdose of perception into depression could also be very angry quite a lot of the time.
Oh, totally. Definitely.
Or drink a lot. I don't think anyone is spared this, what we're talking about. I think everyone has a different way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And that's again why we call it out, on a wholesale basis. It's like, there's that person doing it that way, that person doing it that way. Not many of them are actually very sustainable or wholesome, are they? These coping strategies.
No,
and
they're not.
Instead of, and then we play about with the coping strategies rather than just calling out the reason for it all.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Sarah's saying we're the superhero we're waiting for. I agree. And she's saying the Love and Light Brigade. I pray for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just put in sneakily that you call them the lollies, the love,
the lolly
and
boomers,
light, the lolly boomers.
The lolly boomers, Love and Light Brigade. Yeah.
Someone trying to fix something we're not asking to be fixed is superiority and a judgment that we should stop being that.
That's true, isn't it?
So beautifully put.
And
Sarah,
that's why contempt can come back in their gaze as well.
I really like what Sarah's put here. Like, do you want my help? Would you like to change this now? Like one of the things that I've noticed, and I did want to acknowledge you earlier, like when Jay was talking about her and Kim. I recognize that I have got really irritated with Carl, if he's been like laying in bed for like more than 2 days or whatever. There have been times when I haven't been as quite loving. I could have wrapped you in a blanket and rocked you on my lap.
Yeah, but Louisa, at the same time, you've got 3 young children. I haven't got anything like that around me, so I can afford that. It's much more difficult for you to.
I wouldn't want me to do that.
You were coughing for more than about 30 seconds last night, and that really got on my nerves. So we're kind of we're kind of even, aren't we, on this sort of thing? I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I'm like choking.
So are you going to be doing that much longer? Because I'm really trying to get some peace here.
I was actually I got something stuck in my throat and I was choking.
Oh my God.
And I then was coughing pretty much all night. And so my eyes are really like baggy.
Can't only be me that gets annoyed with other people choking around them.
But today I've got a very sore throat from all the coughing. I was coughing for hours.
Don't you start, Jay.
But actually, one of the things that
he's going to walk off in a minute if I cough.
Not again.
One of the things I like to do, like in the past, sometimes I've just wanted to talk to him and just be listened to. And he's made the assumption that I'm asking for help. And so now, sometimes if I want to be listened to, I actually say to him, I just want you to listen. I don't want your opinion. I don't want your help.
Yes.
I just want you to hear me. And sometimes if I go into something, he'll say, are you wanting help with this?
I've learned.
That's brilliant.
It certainly beats the 3-week standoff, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Oh, I love that. I think that's brilliant. We had to come to that because I realized that also I said to Kim one day, I said, I think you've got Asperger's or autism or something. And we really seriously, I'm not taking that lightly, by the way.
Yeah.
That is something, because I said, I'm sick of being the one that's out there with the broken limbs all the time. Where's your shit? And he was like, oh, I don't know, I haven't got any. I'm like, yeah, you have. Anyway, but in the end, I realized that he's got issues that I've had to kind of navigate around as well. So when I in that space, which isn't very frequent these days, I have to say to him, look, I'm finding it hard, but can you just listen? I don't want you to fix me. I don't want you to offer a solution or a suggestion of what I should or shouldn't do. I just need to rant. I just need to go, bleh. And he'll go, oh, okay, I've got it. And he'll sit and he'll listen and he won't say anything. Which is, we have to actually give instructions sometimes, because I forget.
It's true. It's not a medical diagnosis. It's not a medical diagnosis necessarily. It's really, I think it is the difference between, broadly speaking, to make a generalization between the way, I mean, this is a matter of record, isn't it? The way different way male and female minds work. Or
totally. Have you seen that? Have you ever seen that clip by a guy called Michael Gungor on YouTube somewhere? And he's he's so funny. I don't know whether he's a psychologist or something, but he does this thing, and he does this hilarious talk about the difference between men's brains and women's brains. And he goes, right, a man's brain, he's got these two heads on stage. He goes, a man's brain is like, right, there's a box for this, there's a box for that, there's a box for this, and a box for that, and there's a nothing box in the middle. And he said, and these boxes must never touch. You never touch, they never touch. He said, we know when we're in that box, we're in that box. Woman's brain is like connected to everything. It's a tangle of everything connected, and they want to know everything.
It's the drawer in the kitchen with all the things in it, isn't it?
It is totally that. And he said, and sometimes she'll pop to me and go, what are you doing? And I'll go, nothing. And I'll really mean nothing, because I'm in my nothing box. And she'll go, can I come in there with you? And he's going, no, you can't. No. Because you'll just want to hang pictures up in there and make it pretty, and I just don't want you to. Leave it,
Yeah. Step out of the nothing box.
I've seen that physically. When Kim is in his nothing box, he's just sat there. He can stare at a wall, and I'll say, "What are you thinking about?" He go, "Nothing," and I'm like, "Really? He means it?"
That's right.
Back off.
Or a woman, a partner might say, "What?" And you go, what? Nothing. There is really nothing going on.
I know. Conversely, he's terrified to say to me, what are you thinking about? Because I'm like, where do we start? This could take a day.
I've only got 5 minutes. I shouldn't have asked that question.
And as he's asking me, he's backing out the room. That's I need a wee. I need something to eat. He's distracting.
I didn't
all
mean
the time.
how are you. I didn't really. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, I don't want you to tell me. I want to offer you the illusion that I give a shit.
Yes, exactly. Can we just leave it at that, please?
Yeah, I don't want to enter into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So all of that adds up to depression's quite a wonderful thing, and it can be. It doesn't feel very nice, but it's a very authentic thing to be. And if you're with a partner, it's very difficult for them. I don't like living with me some days, so why should he have to? But it's like it can be sorted, and you can get through it, and you can deal with it together if you're with a partner, and you can get through it on your own, and it doesn't always mean medication, and it doesn't mean one of the law of attraction brigade ringing you and saying, oh, you're just on the emotional scale, go and see Abraham Hicks. Fuck off, I don't want to. You're not depressed. I'm like, what? Yeah. So
can I also offer? This sounds like it's a closing comment, but from that other point of view, for people who are maybe not so much on the same wavelength, because we have a lot of great friends, don't we, in this conversation, and people who resonate with what we're talking about. It's very enjoyable. And then there might be those people who chance upon it, who've been called to it or interested because of the discussion about depression. And I would say, especially to young men, and I think it applies to human beings generally, that to consider the thought that it's not you, it's the system we're in. Now that is not meant to be a fix, because that doesn't really might not fix it. We're still that here, might not help that much, but it can help hugely at the right time to know that whilst you're taking it out on yourself, if that's what you're doing, there's a good reason for that. It's not you, it's the system into which you've been born, and quite rightly you're reacting to it, and you still have to make terms with it. That was the thing that I wanted to bypass desperately as a younger man, is I thought if I wrote a really good book about it, I could bypass what was necessary in the subsequent decades. But we are in a time where it's good to have that realization as early as possible, like it's not you, it's the system. And then you still have a lot of work to do to make terms with the system. It really is a clear and present danger, if you like, that we are in a system that's injurious to all that we truly are as human beings. And that's when you need stoicism. That's when you need the great things that we love, like the law of attraction and an understanding of these metaphysical principles to get you through and to make sense of this stupid world we live in. That does take some work, and there's no. I would have wanted that not to be hard. and it
Yeah.
not to have taken much work, but it takes decades, doesn't it? It would seem.
It does, you know, and all these things, to be fair to them all, I know I've had a little bit of a go about them, but I really understand and I acknowledge the goodness of them as well, because there's some good in everything.
Yeah.
And at times they've been a lifeline for me, and
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
been a life belt. They've kept me afloat sometimes as well, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But again, it's like we have to go on and go on and go on. And I don't believe, with all of my heart and soul and all the things that innately I do know and have experienced on the other end of the scale, I don't believe we were meant to come into this life to suffer. I really
I
don't.
Yeah.
I think
agree
that
with
is
you.
just,
I
again,
agree
a
with you.
program that we're born into, and we
Yes.
just go, well, do that then. We'll do that because
Yeah.
everybody else does that.
Yeah.
We are now coming into another epoch, so to speak, where we're recognizing who we truly are and finding out these things, and then shedding along the way that which no longer serves us. So depression's one of those things that eventually I had an experience with Vinny, which I'll go into another time. Well, one of the things that came out of it was being in touch with my galactic aspect, where if you're in that realm, there is no sickness, there's no disease, there's nothing. They're self-leveling, so to speak. They're self-adjusting, and we all are. We have that ability, but we just don't know how at the moment, you know. But I am absolutely 100% convinced and believe that that is entirely possible, you know,
I'm with
at
you.
some
I'm with you.
stage.
And the thing that you heard, that we heard as kids, don't get ideas above your station.
Oh God,
You know,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is, perhaps now is the time to say, you know, there is so much more beyond the station we've been given, and the
Oh,
station we're
totally.
conditioned to believe in from an early
Yeah.
age. There is more, and that is the acknowledgement of it and the growing into it is an uncomfortable process
Yes.
anyway, and it's made even worse by the culture we live in.
Yeah.
And that's as good as it gets in a way, isn't it? Is that is how it is.
Yeah.
And you know, this is MC for you most mornings of the week, in which to breathe out and be aware that there are other people who think like that and approach their lives in that way. And I think that's why what you're doing is really important here. To you know, holding the space is the shit, and this is holding the space for possibilities other than that which makes us depressed, if you like.
Yes, absolutely, Carl. I agree with you. And I think, you know, from my point of view now, I am very intolerant of some things, I'll admit. But if somebody rings me, or somebody I see some or whatever, I'm in a situation where somebody I can feel needs my empathy and it's genuine. It's like it's there in buckets full. You know, I'll be there. I'll sit on the
We've
floor with
experienced
somebody in the street. I will do that because I know how that feels, and I know that all they need is to be seen and acknowledged and heard. And I've got any amount of time for that, you know.
We've been on the
Yeah.
receiving end of that, Jay. We can our lives have been
Oh,
blessed by it. Thank you.
oh, bless you.
Oh,
Thank you, lovely.
yeah,
Oh, I love
I
you
mirror
guys.
that. Yeah.
I love you. I love you.
Well, that's
I
so
do.
funny because actually about 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, actually, Sarah Taylor says, "Oh, I love you guys."
Oh, did she? Oh, oh,
I was too busy
Sarah.
entertaining my ego to see that.
Yeah, but I wasn't. I was watching these lovely comments coming in. So anyway, I think
Oh,
thank you so much for sticking around with us, Jay.
oh, you're
Even
welcome.
though like we ducked out of the conversation for 20 minutes when our
Did Jay
power
just
went.
stay here?
Well, just a minute. You know what? I've just remembered a comment that was said to me by this spiritual community when I was 18 years old. And she said, "You will all go," this woman was channeling, and she said to each one of us there, "You will all go about your daily lives and blah, 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 and you will all, because you're all the same soul family." Well, that I did get. I kind of knew that. And she said, "And eventually all the storms around you will unite you further." I've never forgotten that. Well, here we are.
It's not the first time, is it, that you've carried on running a show when Carl and I have like checked out of them? So.
Oh God! Well, I don't think I ran anything, because I thought, what's happening? They've gone. You know, I don't know what to do, because I couldn't get into the presenting bit. But so
Yeah.
apologies to anyone if I sat there looking like my mother.
It's fine.
You know?
I'm going to go in after and remove that great big gap of space. But thank you so much for sticking around with us, Jay. I really appreciate
Oh,
that, and for all of
it's
your
a
sharing,
pleasure.
and you, Mr. M.
Thank you. I've really
Oh
enjoyed
yeah. Oh,
this.
I
Yeah,
love it.
and
I love our interactions, and they always uplift
yes.
me, and it's brilliant. And thank you for creating this space again. So
Oh, it's my
yeah,
pleasure.
I just wish we lived closer.
Oh yeah, well you have to come out. bring
Yeah.
him out, come and have a visit.
Yeah,
And,
do.
and thank you also to Sarah. You stuck around as well in the storm.
Oh,
Thank
she
you
did.
to Anna, who's down the road from us, quite a way down the road, but thank you for joining us as well. And for all the people that are watching today, and for all the other people that like watching catch up. Last comment from Sarah is, and this is going back to the difference between men and women. Most of the time, I actually have to specifically ask Dan to offer his advice, and then wait about 2 days and then ask him again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Sarah was just loving the idea of self-leveling. And I think we can all learn to do that. I think
we can. Yeah, it's more difficult in the body because it's denser, but when we're not in the body, it's instant. It's brilliant. I've experienced that. So
fantastic. Right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Please do check in with us tomorrow. I've got Sarah on the show with me, and we're talking about, I think, picking ourselves back up after a fall, which kind of ties in with the theme as well.
Great.
It's going to be a great little interaction. So anyway, lots and lots of love to you wherever you are.
See you there.
Connect again real soon. Bye for now.
Love and light, everyone. Love and light.